SSBL peeps? It is now episode 5 of Jacked. J Watt alongside Fisac, looking fresh there with a button down.
Yeah, summer has come to Columbia, South Carolina, and by summer I mean 65 degrees with a breeze, which I will gladly take over. It was like in the 80s the other day. So I'm rocking the short sleeves. I'm just
Very
I'm
nice.
just enjoying the warmer weather. Baseball is here. The SSBL is hot in action. I mean, we got a lot to cover today as well, so I needed to shake as many layers as I could.
Yeah, lots to cover. Obviously, since this week included a Super Saturday, we're gonna stick to the trend of doing a division recap following a Super Saturday week. So we're gonna kick things off with the heroic icons. This one is, a very interesting situation with the overdrafts now dropping 2 and the retrievers now at 2, but overdraft sitting at 6-2, or retrievers 3-2. This is where this obviously 0-5. The other two teams 0-5 Moonshots, 0-5 Liberty. We'll just talk about the overdrafts and the retrievers as they do face each other coming up.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that the Retrievers, their wins haven't even been that impressive yet. Like they barely beat the Liberty. It's like I do think, or they barely beat the Express. I think they handily beat the Liberty, if I remember correct. I can actually pull them up to see exactly what they did. But for the Retrievers, yeah, they Express 3-2 and the Liberty 4-3. You need to be beating those expansion sides by much more if your goal is to be going toe to toe with the overdrafts.
Right.
And so now this upcoming week, that's gonna have a really big shift in terms of if the Retrievers win that, all of a sudden they're 4-2. All of a sudden the overdrafts are 6-3 and very much in the Retrievers' hands in terms of being in control of that division. And I definitely think that if they do that, that can give them the momentum to push forward. But yeah, I mean, the thing with the Moonshots, I mean, I have never seen a team built so well to fail. Like honestly, of course Pandora. Of course Pandora, even in the season in which he's tanking, builds the best tanking team we have ever
Yeah.
seen. We had starters come into both the Walkers game and the Bombers game. That 16-8 Walkers game was the highest scoring of any game we've had this season at 24 runs. Well, then literally the very next stream, Bombers Moonshot sets it at 26 after they give up 22 runs.
Right.
Like it is admirable what
Wait,
Pandora has been able to do to turn this team into just a stinker.
which
But yeah, obviously the overdraft dropping a game against Serpents doesn't help them there, but very much a 2-horse race here.
Yeah, I mean, and also to add to the moonshot situation, that 17 run loss, or was it 17 or 18?
It was 18.
So that is now the lead for the largest margin of victory in the SSBL. It was formerly held by the Lumberjacks. I want to say also against the Moonshots. Am I wrong? Wasn't it? Wasn't? I believe so.
This is why we need a record book for these types of things.
We do.
So that we can just go back and
I
find
want to
it.
say it was. It was Express. Express 18-2. But Lumberjacks held that. Now the Bombers hold it with a 18 run victory against the Moonshots. This also, and we'll get into a little bit more in Panic and Chill as well as the week ahead. They play this week in week 6, the overdrafts and the retrievers. So this is where things are going to get really, really tight within that division. Right now, it's technically, they're like what would you call that? 1.5 games essentially.
We'll more. I think overdraft retrievers will do more to tell us than when they're gonna be standing at.
So that's a very simple one to kind of go over. It's a 2-team race. Like that's kind of it. If you look at the playoff picture right now, that second team would make it in regardless. They're at number 6. Retrievers are overdraft sitting at the number 2 seed in the heroic. So moving on now to the heroic legends. This one is getting a little spicy. A little bit spicy. Lumberjacks fall to the ball players in a really close game. A no-hitter through 6 for the Lumberjacks, and then ball players just wake up and put up 3 runs I think it was in that inning. So Lumberjacks sitting at 3-2, Vikings 3-3. Knights still hanging around in that division, even though they're not going to
They won't be.
compete, but they're hanging around at 2-3, and then Express at 1-7. Fisac, what are your thoughts? Lumberjacks, Vikings are basically the two that we're gonna watch for here. But it is a closer race, even though it shouldn't be, with the Knights being just a game back of the Vikings.
I think that the Lumberjacks are handily winning this division as of right now. However, if trades get made and the Vikings are able to either revitalize that bullpen aside from Tammy John or able to get some more consistency in that batting order, I think this is a very different division to look at. Squared, myself, and Wit were talking on the Week 5 Day 3 stream. We basically used the blowout game of the night to talk about just like what the heroic looks like, because we've spent so much time talking about the epic that we've kind of overlooked the heroic, I think, a little bit. And I definitely think that I have been I think I over exaggerated how bad the Vikings were in terms of their top to bottom. Um, but I think the Vikings, their pitching has not been as much of the flip switch as I thought it would be, which I think gives them a much better chance against the Lumberjacks. Another thing that Whitney noted, though, was that both Spencer Reed and Riley Reed, and especially Miyuki as well, in seasons past, have carried this team in terms of they have produced in the 5, 6, 7, 8 slots when they had no business producing
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever. And now with this latest patch, like they've come back down to earth in terms of where their ratings are. And so their offense towards the back end just doesn't have the kick that it used to because we're not playing the same game that we used to play. So I still think this is very much the Lumberjacks division to win, but I mean, until that trade deadline closes on May 1st, who knows what this division battle is going to be. Again, very similar to the Heroic Icons, where this is a battle between two teams here.
No,
And the
yeah,
Express, we cannot talk about the
finally
Express
get
without
their
talking about them
victory.
getting their first ever win.
Mm.
Deservedly, they could have easily have been 3-5 and said they're 1-7, but huge shout out to the Express, which just leaves Liberty as the only outside looking in right now.
Yeah.
But they play the Moonshots twice. There's no way Liberty are gonna go
Yeah,
winless.
no shot that they go. But Lumberjacks, they face the Express this week, but Vikings are off, which would, more than likely you would assume that the Lumberjacks take on the Express with a W, but obviously the Express do have quite the lineup that can compete, and as you said, they should be 3-5, not 1-7. So we don't really know if that game is going to be an easy win for the Jacks. It will be the first game with Rec Dreams in the lineup as well, so that's something to consider. But Lumberjacks should go into week 7 at 4-2. And the Vikings next game is the Lumberjacks in week 7 day 2. So it's about to get really messy in that division.
I
Especially,
really do just want to quickly say though
yeah.
that a little bit of a scheduling quirk. The Express after week 7 day 3, they play 2 games this upcoming week. They play 2 games the week after. Before Super Saturday of week 7, they will only have 4 more games in the last 6 weeks,
Oh wow.
which is crazy that their entire schedule like played out in the very like beginning of the season here, like even more so than the overdrafts.
Yeah, their last game being week 13, so the last week of the season and day 1 against the Liberty. So that will be a really good one. We might have to move that one to the SSBL game of the night presented by Turtle Beach. So moving on, this one is now my favorite division in the entire Heroic. Honestly, the Heroic
I want you to
Evolution.
explain that.
This division is because the Dragons are coming back. They're coming back with a vengeance. They're coming after the Gauchos. They play the Gauchos like 2 out of their next 3 or 4 games, I think is what it is, or at least 2 weeks. There's a chance that we'll have 2, and I think I scheduled it correctly. We'll have week 6. We'll have a game of the night, Gauchos at the Dragons, and then week
2
8.
weeks later, week 8 day one.
And then
It's
I have already gone through, I think, week 9, I think, with all the game of the night so far, and obviously subject to change. But that's in 2 weeks. You face the Gauchos twice, and I think the Gauchos are the best team in the heroic, but I think you have such a momentum with the Dragons that you do have a shot at upsetting them. They are coming off a loss, obviously, against the Unicorns. I think the Dragons lineup is really showing up. It took them a while. That game, it was a 7-3 game, and it only was 3 innings worth of baseball. That third inning,
yeah, all 10 runs were scored in that third.
that third inning was it. But it was 7. You're putting up 7 runs in that one inning, a grand slam. What was it, by Betancourt, I believe? The grand slam. If I'm not mistaken, it was Betancourt. She had 2 home runs, 1 grand slam.
Betancourt had 2 home runs for sure in the Dragons Cyclones game.
So
I
maybe,
know that.
that was Duketown.
Duketown, yeah.
Duketown with the home run in that game. Your grand salami time over there, the Dragons. And I just think obviously the Walkers are falling off. The wrong fielders are falling off. I think this is going to become a race between the Dragons and the Gauchos. I do think the Gauchos have the upper hand, but I do think the Dragons are fighting for their lives here.
Yeah, well, it didn't help to start the season in the Heroic Legends 0-3, but what changed is we had out of the last 5 games that we played, 4 of them have been at home. So literally 0-3 on the road. We're 1-3 on the road this season and 4-0 at home right now. So I was hesitant to say that the Dragons were not going to be making postseason. I mean, obviously this is still a long season. We'll talk about the heroic picture. Dragons are very much not necessarily guaranteed to go to postseason at any regard. But I knew that the 0-3 term was gonna turn around, and especially getting the win against Kyle Edwards and the Cyclones. It was a Doug Kelly-less Cyclones, but still getting the win against Kyle Edwards. Not playing to the level of the Walkers. I think Gauchos will be. I think that's going to be a loss, to be honest, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a wake-up call in terms of, yes, this team is not as bad as we thought, but they're also not as good as you think as well. I mean, who knows? It is at home, but I fully believe that March has built a very, very good team.
I agree.
But the Heroic Legends, it's interesting because the ROM fielders starting to fall off a little bit. They only had 1 game for us to talk about this week, and that was a 5-2 loss. But that's a 5-2 loss to the Knights. That's not a good loss, especially if you're in that division where the Walkers are overperforming where they should be. The Dragons are now back in the picture, and then you also have the Gauchos. You can't lose to the Knights. That's part of the reason why the Dragons win over the Walkers was so important, is because it's a win that you need to be getting. Because you can't guarantee what's going to happen in those games against the Gauchos and stuff. So when the ROM fielders play the Knights, when they play the Liberty, the Express, when they play the Moonshots, these are games that they need to be winning, because there's no guarantee that they can beat the Retrievers. There's no guarantee that they can beat the Overdrafts. There's no guarantee they can beat the Lumberjacks. But yeah, this division is quickly becoming really interesting. I think it's a little top heavy with the Gauchos, but considering how much we put on the Epic Novas and that battle being, and how the Skulls have bowed out, as well as the Cyclones, their recent stint, which we'll talk about them. This division is probably becoming the one to watch, without a doubt, the one to watch in the heroic, because the Lumberjacks are winning the Legends, and it's a heroic evolution, by the way. That's the conference that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know why I kept on saying Legends. I was getting back to my old ways. So Lumberjacks are set to win the heroic Legends. I think the Overdrafts are going to win the heroic icons, but the Retrievers could very much battle for it, but it's really only a 2-dog race, whereas this one is much more interesting to look at in terms of how it plays out.
Yeah, and you got to also keep in mind that you and the wrong fielders, y'all have played 8 games, where the Gauchos have played 4. So twice as many games. The next 4 for the Gauchos: Dragons, Liberty, Retrievers, Dragons. So something to keep in mind. And they do have their other interconference game later this season against the High Rollers. So they do have a tough schedule, but I think they're good. More than likely, it's going to come down to you and the Gauchos, but I do think the Gauchos and Marge, they have such a stacked lineup that they're going to come out on top in this evolution. division. Which, moving on, we're going to move to another one that's very similar. I would call it very similar to the icons. The icons of the Epic. It is the Epic Galaxy. This is the 2-team race. We got the Unicorns. We have the Wildcats. This one, and it comes down to what we've talked about numerous times on this podcast, is you have to win your games against the other teams within your conference. Unicorns have already taken care of the Wildcats. They beat them twice, but those are the only 2 losses that the Wildcats have. So it's now down to the Unicorns to really fight with these other teams within the Epic, as well as the Wildcats. So it's really that's what's going to come down to defining who wins this division.
And the Unicorns' huge 2-1 win over the Gauchos. I mean, their best win of the season, without a doubt, in terms of what that represents. And again, if we see these teams in the Super Series, I don't think anyone would be surprised. And so, mark that one note ahead for the Unicorns. Mark that as a chip on the shoulder for the Gauchos. Wildcats taking care of business. They're beating the Retrievers as well as beating the Sparrows. This division, I definitely think it's more of the heroic icons, just because even though I think that the Epic Novas is kind of similar as well to the icons, the difference is that, like, far and away, without a doubt, you have the Mythic and Angels, who are very much the bottom, and the Unicorns and the Wildcats, which are very much the top. And I think that there is one team that's clearly better than the other, which I think the Unicorns are clearly better than the Wildcats.
Yeah.
Not because the Wildcats are bad, but I just think that right now they have proven that they are the better team as of late. Especially winning the 2 games that they play against each other. Again, I think the narrative to watch for this is the idea of, do the Wildcats hold on? And for this, do they force a division game at the very, very end to see who wins that division? Because at this rate, all it would take is one win where the Wildcats get and the Unicorns don't, and they're even. And they're going into a play-in game where whoever wins is the 1st seed, whoever loses is the 4th seed, has to play in the wild card,
or 5th
and
seed.
then
That's the
I
other
think
thing.
I think it'll. I mean, even if it's the 4th or the 5th seed, they're gonna end up playing the 1 seed again. Like, that's the way that it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting to see how it will pan out. But as of right now, it's 2 divisions, and of course, the biggest news, as we'll talk about in the trade movement, is that the Angels have finally understood their fate. And I don't know if you were listening, but to the stream on Wednesday, where Ryder messaged me and was like, "How quickly before you guys kick managers out?" And I had to tell him, dude, we don't kick you out for losing. In fact, we openly warrant people to tank if they so want. Because if you want to tank and deal with the lotto odds, that's your own thing, man. That's why we have the lotto set up the way that it is. Where every team that doesn't make postseason is in the lotto. And I think even in the past, we had the wild card teams too, right? To really de-incentivize the idea of tanking.
That was prior to adding the additional team. It was like 5, I want to say 5 teams per conference that made it, if I'm not mistaken. So that wild card team, those 2 who I guess would lose, they made it in. So yeah, it's a different landscape now, but the lotto is, if you want to tank the lotto, take your chances, which I don't think the actual team that has tanked has actually gotten #1 pick, but it's always
anyways, all this to say that it's very much the Wildcats and the Unicorns. Not much has changed this past week, except for the Unicorns getting a really good statement win over the Gauchos.
Yeah, they come from behind when Woody Walker, the vet, coming in and with the walk-off.
Old Iron Balls.
Woody Walker coming in with the grounder, getting through the infield on the left side to seal the win there. We'll move on to the Epic Novas. This one is going to be a battle between the ball players and the Stingers. This is where I find this one very close to the Legends, where it's a battle between the Lumberjacks and the Vikings. This is if we're going to compare. Very similar to there, 7-1 ball players, 6-1 are the Stingers. Skulls 3-5, Cyclones 1-5. But the thing is, the ball players, some of these wins, they're just getting by. Cyclones 1-0 victory. 3-0 against the Lumberjacks. It's
3-1 against the
3-1,
Lumberjacks. Yeah,
3-1.
I,
Yeah.
I I do want to briefly say as well for the Cyclones, like Marge said their season is done because they were 1-3 entering this week, and then 9-5 loss to the Dragons with Edwards on the mound. Granted, again they don't have Kelly, but that also a 1-0 loss to the ball players. Like
Hmm.
it, I feel like this has been the narrative of the Cyclones. They won their division the first season, right? Like that season 4 where everyone finished 7-7, and so we had all those playing games, and the Cyclones ended up winning it all. Um, or winning the division at least. And I know that bringing that up makes you remember of starting out, 6-1, the Skulls going 7-7, and then not even making postseason. But then you won it all in season 5, so it's not the end of the world. Anyways, all to say, I feel like that's just been I feel like the Cyclones. If the Wildcats had been the bad luck last season, I feel like the Cyclones have routinely had the bad luck of this SSBL since season 5. Like
Yeah.
this is now the fourth straight season where they're not a bad team, but it just doesn't show on the on-field product in terms of the final box score. And I don't know what the answer is. The Cyclones have never really gone through a tank. Maybe they need to and ship off Edwards and a lot of these tools while they still have them to have assets. I mean, we already see when we talk about the trade recaps what some veterans are going for, and it's not that much in terms of assets. So it's tough for the Cyclones, but then I think the Stingers have, I'd said, they fully erased the sins of that initial loss, as well as the fact that they have won 6 straight, and they've done it against some good teams as well, against the Bombers, against the Serpents. And so I think they can take it to the ball players. And the Stingers, we were kind of discounting them at the beginning of the season in terms of almost like the Retrievers, where they were good, but they just didn't get to where we're expecting them to be. Stingers have now redeemed that storyline.
Mhm.
Retrievers need to do the same now too, where it's like you're not a bad team, get the wins. Get the wins, win your division like
Right.
we are expecting you to do a season or two ago. And I think the Stingers did win their division last season as well. So
No, no,
this,
that I think Squared. We mentioned that I want to say in the first ever episode or the second episode, and then Squared's like, no, 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 we lost the game in the it was a play in. I think
well,
ball players ended up winning it,
that's right. That's right.
but regardless, the Cyclones. I think Whitney mentioned it on the cast. It's now the fourth straight season where they have lost 8 in a row against the ball players. The Cyclones have. I want to say that's what Whitney said. 4 straight that they've gone 0-2 against the ball players. So ball players have the Cyclones number. And to be honest, I think the ball players will have that number for quite some time. I think Cyclones have a long road ahead of them for future seasons. But we'll see. Ball players do have a few young guys that they're going to stick around and be a competitive team for at least a couple more seasons. They don't have any picks for the next 2 drafts, at least as it stands right now.
I mean,
Um,
that's the way it was 2 seasons ago, and we said, "Man, if they don't win it all, they're done." And yet
Here they are.
they keeps on getting away with it.
I don't get it, but they're doing it. I mean, they haven't been to a Super Series since season 1. So that was against the wrong fielders, which also has not been to a Super Series since season 1. And then Skulls of Rock, obviously they win two games. They're now at 3-5. Do I think the Skulls will compete for a playoff spot? No, I really don't. I think it's coming down already to it's 6 teams. It's Unicorn, Serpent, Stingers, Wildcats, Bombers, and High Rollers. That's who your 6 are. I don't think the Skulls will be in that mix. They have such a tough road ahead of them.
Well,
Obviously, I
you're
shipped
missing
everyone
a
out.
number here. You're missing a number here because it's ball players Stingers,
Hmm.
Wildcats Unicorns, which we'll talk about the phenoms because it's Serpents, High Rollers, Bombers
Hmm.
in terms of that competition. But yeah, the Skulls are definitely on the outside looking in of that group.
Yeah, which we'll go ahead and move over to the Phenoms because now this is the evolution of the epic.
A weakened evolution because
Yeah.
I genuinely think the Gauchos are one of the best teams in the SSBL.
No, I agree.
But if there is an equivalent, it's nice that each division kind of has their own equivalent
Hmm.
in each one. But
Uh,
yeah, I mean, man, I still don't know what separates these teams. I genuinely think it's Bombers, Serpents, High Rollers, and I think the Bombers are a little bit more ahead of the Serpents and the High Rollers, but I mean, this division is going to come down to a knife's edge. And what I think is going to happen here is that they're going to eat each other up so much
Hmm.
that whoever wins the Phenoms is going to be the third seed, as well as the other two are going to be the 5 and 6. The way I think it's going to end up panning out, or one of them is going to be the 6, because I
Hmm.
don't think that there's no way they can, just with the way the Novas and the Galaxy are set up. One, I think between the Serpents, Bombers, and High Rollers, one of those is not making that,
Yep.
and it's weird to think because the High Rollers just won a Super Series, but they're not as good as they were last season. The
Mm.
Bombers very much are the best on paper, and yet they're 3-3. The Serpents, they didn't make it last season. They built up, but Big McLarge Huge is hitting below 200.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to judge this, and they have the best performing expansion team as well, just to mix things up a little bit too.
Right. And something to note outside of obviously playing the Sparrows, Bombers have only played the High Rollers, so they play the High Rollers this week, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, on week was it day 2? Yeah, day 2. Yep, day 2. High Rollers, Bombers. So they have a rematch at home. So Bombers look to get the revenge, but they haven't played the Serpents yet. And how the Bombers and Serpents series always gets. It's the most anticipated, probably out of all the rivalries within the SSBL. It's the most anticipated because the chat is always wild. Things will happen. It's going to be insane because if you also think about it, you look at the Bombers schedule. You have High Rollers, then you have the Mythic Serpents, Lumberjack, Serpents. But I scroll down to their final 3 games. Unicorns, that's going to be a tough one. It's going to really test the Bombers. Sparrows, they should win that one. If this comes down to one game, your final game is at the Wildcats.
Whoa,
That is your
wow.
final game. That's terrifying. I'm sorry, but that's terrifying that you have to face one of the best teams in the SSBL for your final game, which at that moment it could be you need to win and you're in.
Both teams will be like giving their all for that game, in terms of like you're not going to have someone resting players for postseason.
Right.
I don't think in that game, because both of those teams could very well be competing to win their division.
Mm-hmm.
If the Unicorns drop a gamer there and the Wildcats make it up, like the Wildcats are definitely going to have something to play for, and then the Bombers again, like with this division, yeah, like that is going to be a game where like that might be a game where there's a lot of resources expended in terms of you're going full tilt, and what was the cost of it.
Right. And then for the High Roller schedule, they have a tough week ahead of them. Wildcats for day 1, and then day 2 they face the Bombers again. So and then for them, they've already played the Serpents. They lost 1-0. They'll get their revenge. Let's see, 3 games towards it. Yeah, their last 3 games, the Serpents are the first one. Cyclones. Then they finished their season against the Stingers. So another tough one for the High Rollers, having to face the Stingers as their last game, to where it literally could be do or die. It's on the same day as the Bombers, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's on the same day as Bombers and Wildcats. At least it is on the before Super Saturday schedule. Yes, it is on the same day as Bombers and Wildcats. So that's a tough one. Serpents, they end their season against the Ball Players. I don't know what to say here
Yeah,
because this is
that's
literally going to
never.
get insane. This is going to be the out of probably all 6 divisions that we have here in the SSBL. This one is the highest chance of possibly even having a 3-team championship tournament to decide
Where
not
the
just that, but whoever loses out of those 3 are gone.
What's crazy, know what's crazy about that situation, where if those 3 teams are tied and it's for the 3, 6, and you're out, is that one of the teams will be guaranteed a playoff spot because of their run differential. That is crazy to think about.
Yep.
That if they all, I know I don't think they will, but if they all end up tied, as of right now, they've all played the same number of games. The Bombers plus 32, the Serpents plus 10, the High Rollers -7. Purely
Mhm.
because of run differential, if all those teams were tied, the Bombers would automatically be going to postseason,
Yep.
while the Serpents and High Rollers would play just to get into the playoff spot and then play to win it. Like, that's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep.
That is
That's
crazy.
I think it's gonna be an incredible story to watch unfold. So I'm very excited to see how that is. But that is such a fun division if you're
I
a
hope
fan of the
that does not
SSBL.
happen. That because that the amount of salt. If I mean, can you imagine if it's wit as well? If somehow the Bombers like dropped a lot of games and lost by a lot of runs, and they're the ones playing against the Serpents in a play-in game, and the loser doesn't even make postseason. I
Yeah.
don't think we'll have a league after that.
It's gonna be wild. Which we'll go ahead and move on to trade recaps. We had 5 total trades since our last episode. We got obviously Skulls of Rock are in here twice. Skulls of Rock receive Maya Serenity and the Wildcats S9 round 2, and then Isla Page going to the Wildcats. Um, I mean, for me personally on this trade, Page was someone who came in and was giving up either whether there's runners on base and just giving up hits, and those runs will score, and obviously making a game that should be closer a lot larger of a loss. And then Jesus Shuttlesworth would come in and do an incredible job. So I moved her to CP, and it did well. Obviously, we won a couple of games. Maya Serenity will have the same role. But getting that S9 pick is big for the Skulls heading into the future for that organization.
Yeah, and the votes here: 2 to Skulls, 1 to Wildcats in terms of who won. Uh, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't love it for the Wildcats just because I don't know how much Illa Page does for you more so than Serenity. Like, I know on paper Serenity is a worse pitcher. I don't love it for the Wildcats. And it's for the same reason why I don't love my trade, which we'll talk about,
Right.
and why I even made it if I don't love it. Um so yeah, I think that's a tough one. I think that's a tough
Yeah.
one for the Wildcats.
But
But obviously for the Skulls, get as many picks as possible.
yeah, and Paige does have a save already as a Wildcat, so that's something to note. She does have a
Maybe
save.
she just need to be in a winning culture.
Maybe that's very Gina Muscles like. So next trade, Skulls of Rock receive Flip Hecker, Wendy Snugs, and the Express S9 round 3 from the Lumberjacks, who receive Rec Dream, Sir Alex Einstein, and then the Ball Players Season 10 round 2 pick. This one from the Skull side, I'm actually really excited. I don't know if I actually hit enter on my new lineup yet or not. But Flip Hecker does make his appearance at third. Did some adjustments there, so I'm actually really excited to see Hecker in that lineup. Windy Snugs, that's like a Paprika Stocks kind of minors. You're gonna have aging help out, plus a little bit of minors camp action, and probably have her in the minors for at least probably season 9 as well, to really, because that low accuracy is not in our favor at all. But obviously getting another, even though it's a round 3 pick, but pick's a pick, getting another S9 pick is good for the Skulls, which from the Lumberjacks perspective, they get another S10 pick. They're getting looking to hold on to as many of those season 10 picks as possible, if not all of them, so they can full on rebuild heading into season 10 and beyond.
Yeah, and I mean for the Lumberjacks, they obviously add another bat, which did they need it? They get better pitching. They do get that season 10 pick. Here, the votes are 5 for the Skulls, and then Marge did heroic because he thinks that the heroic just got better with all of that leaving. I don't know how good Flip Hecker actually is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he is a little bit overvalued. But I think in general, like this is, I'll tell you what, the Lumberjacks are gonna get old really quickly here,
Yep.
and especially like I guess they are stocking up for the season 10 draft. Which if we look up the number of picks that they have, the Jacks now have 6 picks in the season 10 draft. They have one first rounder. Looks like they have 3 second rounders and 2 third rounders.
Hmm.
But even like with it stocking up for the season 10 draft, that's not a lot of first round picks. But you can always turn those second round picks into first round picks through trades. But yeah, definitely. Again, the Skulls fire sale finishes finally.
Yep.
I don't know
That
if you have any
I
more
no,
planned.
I have no plans to make any more Skulls trades. Obviously, which transitions us into this next one, taking over the Walkers, which we do have a new guy who's starting to learn the ropes as an assistant for the time being for the Walkers, so that should be good for their organization. But Walker's making some picks. Walker's making a pick with the Dragons. They're right after the game, basically, where you defeat the Walkers, you make the trade, and you have Betty Golden headed to the Walkers as well as the Gauchos season 9 round 3, and Yu Narukami headed to the Walkers as well. And Dragons received Ty Sasso, which does help your pitching staff. Sasso's still with the range, he still has a slight chance to be above 200 pitcher heading into next season as well, based on the aging numbers. He could be just above 200, or he could be a 180. Like that's that's where you are with Ty Sasso. But it's still for you this season. I still think getting Sasso is a big get for your pitching staff.
Yeah, and 3 votes for the Walkers for this one. I think it's kind of obvious the Walkers definitely win it. Um, you Narukami was never gonna go to the majors for me. He was always. I think we're excited to figure out now that there are players that are just gonna forever be minors players, and so that's just the way that it is. So you definitely was never gonna start for me. That Gaucho season 9 round 3 could very much end up being the 72nd pick in the draft. So not necessarily a ton given up, but also like it does make the Dragons a little bit older. But Sasso is like a 247, I think, with specialist, which is really,
Mm-hmm.
really nice to have. So even like going into next season, I think the big debate for me for the Dragons is like, do I keep Bradley in that closing pitching role? Because I really want to get as much progression as possible for my minors pitchers. But at a certain point, when do I call up one of those 200 pitchers and replace Hannah Bradley, and as a result have a better overall bullpen at the cost of not getting as much progression anymore. I'm still internally debating that, and we'll see, especially because we'll be able to use minors camps after this next week. So maybe I'll start using those on some of the younger pitchers as opposed to like I think if anybody it'd be champs that would come up. So we'll see, but definitely the Walkers starting to get their fire sale on and doing so with the next one as well.
Yeah, the next one, Ryan and T Hill headed over to the Walkers from the Moonshots. Moonshots get their S10 round 2, Bobby Boucher and Rowan Baloney. Bobby Boucher, Rowan Baloney, those are just throw-in picks, really. Not much of anything from a talent perspective. But Ryan T Hill, I think he's his last game as a Moonshot. He was in the top. They got blown out, but he was number 3 in the top 3 players at the end of the game. So I do think the Walkers do get a nice third baseman. Obviously, Milo Dakota is a third base and an infielder, so he can really play anywhere. So third base, more than likely, Ryan T Hill will start there, and Dakota moving around somewhere else within that infield. I think it's a good trade for the Walkers just because they get someone who is going to be deemed as a veteran for the next couple of seasons. Still get that 0 to 20 aging for T Hill. So I think that's something to look at. He's already a above 300 player, and someone who could almost like lead. If you're looking from a fantasy world, I think he's that player that could possibly lead the Walkers to becoming who the Walkers used to be.
Yeah, and most people thinking that the Moonshots win here. I mean, the Moonshots are now up to in the season 9 draft. The Moonshots have 6 selections, 2 in the first, 3 in the second, 1 in the third, and they'll definitely have the retirements as well. In the season 10 draft, the Moonshots have 8 picks. They have
Wow.
2 firsts, they have one, two, three, four, 5 second rounders, and then they have 1 third rounder. 5 second round picks in the season 10 draft. Man, I'm already hating how good the Moonshots are gonna be in season 12, and that's like not for another like 2 years away, 3 years away, and I'm already hating how good they're gonna be.
So here's something to actually consider. So season 10 would actually begin probably February, March of 2023. Roughly, just as a how seasons typically go within the SSBL. Um, but it's like he's got all these S10 picks. Are these S10 picks going to be valuable once the S9 draft comes up and S11 is available? Is he going to now utilize these S10 picks to get a bunch more S9 picks? That's something to keep an eye on as the draft gets closer. Because think about it, he what if he just gets as many S9 picks as possible, gets probably like 4 first rounders, maybe even 10 total picks, but prior to getting his 2 comp picks, like it could happen. It could very well happen.
That what you just said just gave me the idea for the ultimate meme, which is to constantly get the latest potential draft picks, and those are valued less than the most recent draft, right? That's just like time
Hmm.
value of money, time value of assets. So you could theoretically then use later round picks, and then once the new rounds open up, use those to get even more in the later rounds until eventually in the season 15 draft, you have all the first round picks because you just keep on trading them
Yep.
over and over again. I just think that, I mean, it's not a great way to run an organization, but I think
No.
it'd be really funny.
No, but I do think there's a chance, and obviously Pandora can correct me. Obviously, I don't know his strategy, but he might be able to use those. What'd you say, 10 or 8 picks in the
8
season?
picks in the season 10
Eight.
draft, 5 of them round 2.
Yeah, so he might be able to use those round twos, honestly, to get some S9s. There are going to be those teams that are looking ahead to the future where maybe he's like, all right, let's get a full rebuild in. We'll tank once again. We'll hold on to four picks with 2 of them being in the first round for season 10, where we'll tank again. And I think that he will end up trading a handful of those S10 picks for more S9. That's just my prediction. Um, which leads us to our final. And I told you, I was like, we should just on the podcast, we should speak this trade into existence. And before we could ever do so, Whitney comes in, swoops him up, and gets Murph Kelly. Adds Murph Kelly to their lineup. They get rid of the High Rollers S9 round 2 pick and get as well as Hot Yogurt heading to the Angels, which to be honest, I'm happy for the Angels. I think Murph Kelly didn't need to be there in the first place. I think it was just not the right, place for that guy to be. He needs to be on a winning team. He is a former MVP, for Christ's sake. He needs to be where MVPs are, and that's on the main stage. And that's where I think adding Murph Kelly to the Bombers is going to be very, very crucial down the road.
Yeah, and I think 4 people have said that the Bombers won it. I do definitely think the Angel like it's one of those like I don't know about you, but like when I was growing up, like I really wanted this like magnetics roller coaster thing, and I got it, and I used it like 2 times, and my parents spent like $80 on it, and I used it 2 times, and I learned then like to be very careful about what you spend your money on and to be careful with the resources that you have. I think that Ryder experienced that through managing the Angels this season. He learned a lesson about where his team actually was, and as a result,
Mhm.
lost from the house as a
Yep.
result. Because when you compare to what they gave up to get Murph Kelly and what they got in return, but I think the biggest
Right.
winner from all of this is Hot Yogurt because he goes to an organization that will maybe appreciate his name. because the Whitney always hated his name. I had so many of those just stupid names for that season 7 draft. Beef Boy, News Girl, Hot Yogurt, like all of those were mine that I just added in from League Office just to like fill them out. And it's just so funny how much people hate it. Like people have a visceral reaction to Hot Yogurt.
Which, if we're looking at hot yogurt stats, 26 power, 99 contact, 83 speed, 80 field, and a 31 arm. A center fielder with a first base and outfield secondary. To be honest, I think this is the future first baseman of the Angels. That arm being in the outfield, even though it is at Swagger, so it's a little, you could put yogurt in right and it would work out fine. But still, I think that is someone that you probably have playing first, more than likely. But we'll see what they do at the Angels organization with the acquisition of yogurt. But they do get back a pick here in the S9 draft after giving away one or two in the past couple of weeks here. So which time for overrated and underrated, which we talked very briefly about the heroic race as a whole, for a specific reason, obviously due to it being in this segment of the podcast. And I think, man, this heroic race is going to be something crazy if we're looking at the current playoff picture, right? We have Gauchos at number 1, Overdrafts number 2, Dragons wrong fielders, which for me, as someone, the commissioner of the league from season 1 on, that is a matchup that I would love to see in another best of 3 series. That was literally the semifinals for season 1. I want to see it again in the postseason. I hope it happens. But FISEC, this race, is it underrated in comparison to that of the Epic, or are we is it just overrated? Just kind of a brush off of, these teams are going to be in and that's it.
I think it's rated appropriately in terms of its normal sort of race. I think it's underrated when you consider what we've talked about in the Epic. And I think the Epic is for sure better, but just because the Epic is better doesn't mean the Heroic isn't that good.
Mm-hmm.
And I especially think if the here's what it's going to rely on. Do the Vikings do something?
Yeah.
In terms of, are they gonna play spoiler not only in the heroic playoff chase but also in the legends? They definitely have the starting pitching to do it. They definitely have one reliever to do it. Do they have the top to bottom order as well as the rest of the bullpen to do it? I think if they find a way through, just as the Vikings have done in years past, this heroic gets really interesting. And could the Dragons, wrong fielders, retrievers fall off as a result?
Right.
Could it end up being Vikings versus Lumberjacks and the winner gets in, the loser is out?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the sort of like scale of what we're talking about here in terms of how quickly this could flip. So I'm going to say it's appropriately rated but underrated when you consider the amount of chatter for the Epic.
Yeah, no, I would say underrated as well. Who knows, because if you think about it, it's for that number 6 spot, it's going to be second place in the icons or it's going to be second place in the legends. That's your number 6 spot. So that race to the finish is going to be wild, because I don't think I think you're going to have the 3. Even though the wrong fielders are on a downward spiral right now, outside of defeating who was it that they beat this past weekend? I can't even remember.
Well, the wrong fielders lost 5-2 to the Knights.
Oh, they beat the Angels, though. That's what I was referring to. They beat the Angels 13-3. Outside of that win, they've been on a downward spiral. Will that continue? I do think the wrong fielders will sneak into the playoffs, probably at the 5 seed, and I hope, just for the nostalgia standpoint of this race. But I do think it's a very underrated race compared, obviously Epic is oh my gosh, Epic is going to be crazy, as we just spoke. But I think we have a very similar situation where it's really down to, Retrievers, Vikings, to really get into that last spot. And obviously Lumberjacks, you throw it in just because they're at the top of the division. Same with overdrafts. The fact that overdrafts started off the number one team in the heroic for quite some time in terms of just standings, to they could end up in number 6. Like, so it's crazy to think of. I say that just because of the current standings. That's all I'm saying.
I know
Do I
I'm
think it's
looking
going
at
to
the
go
current
there?
standings, and I'm also
Do I
this.
think it's going to go there? No.
I don't like this trend that you're doing, which is to say things that make me upset because we already know what happened last week, and I feel like sometimes you come up with
Insert
things
mythic logo
just
on
to
my
make me
shirt.
upset.
Insert mythic logo on my shirt here. But no, I think it's underrated. We'll move on to our next topic: free agency 2. To be honest, so free agency 2, if you're new to the SSBL, this is the second wave of free agency, which from who gets like the priority, it's based off of the records at that given time. So the worst gets the first priority, all the way down to the best team gets the last priority. But you have to drop a player. And I think that's a really critical point in this type of free agency period. And I think, to be honest, I think it's very underrated because, number one, I think it's underrated because I think it gets rid of a player that you're just sitting in the minors, and just it picks up somebody who you could potentially develop. So I think it's an underrated market, and I think some people are also quick to jump. Obviously right now it's, a lot of season 1, season 2s that are being dropped. But, I think in the future we might have a chance at seeing some of these older players that are still decent be picked up. Because some people just jump on the S7s or S8s currently, but we'll see how that plays out in the future.
I think it's overrated. In terms of, it's nice to like remove some of the old people that you have, but like for example for the Dragons, like I actually had to be very careful. Like if because of the trade I made with Fran Welder where I got Blair Toblum and was immediately able to drop her, like I would have ended up dropping a season 5 player that I didn't necessarily want to just like drop. Like I was probably going to drop Ruby Sue if I was being honest, in terms of, because I need 2 players to retire for this upcoming season, and like Cooper and Bradley are the only ones that I had that can retire.
Right.
So for me, I think it's overrated, just because there's a little bit more considerations with the drop, as well as those players aren't that great. Like I'll be honest, I don't know if any of those players that were picked up are gonna even escape the minors. We'll see. Maybe a couple do, but I'll be very surprised if any actually end up being contributors onto majors rosters in the future.
To be honest, man, even though I'm a Skulls guy, I'm gonna say Bronco Ford will be up there. Bronco Ford sitting at a 133 right now, but 40 velocity, 41 junk, 52 accuracy. I think there might be a chance.
Do you listen to the words that come out of your mouth?
Yes, I do.
At
Yes,
times?
I do. And
I just want to make sure that you're aware
I
of that.
love watching my words come out of my mouth
Because
and go under your skin.
this next one is
skin.
probably gonna be spicy based off what you've already said.
Yeah. So if you're referring to that, that's the overdrafts. Are they overrated with the 2-game kind of skid here, or are they they still kind of underrated to still being the best team and in that outside of the Gauchos in that conference?
I think they're properly rated. If they lose to the Retrievers, they are officially overrated in my mind. I think they started out strong. And listen, this is coming from someone that I know what it's like to start off hot. I know what it's like to start off slow. And you know what? Mediocrity is the end result at the end. So if they drop this next one, even if it's to a good Retrievers team, you're now at 6-3. And guess what? 6-4 is just 1 game away. And it is amazing how quickly the losses seem to pile up out of nowhere. So I'm going to go with properly rated, but a loss to the Retrievers, and they're officially overrated, even though that'd be a loss to a very good Retrievers team.
All right, Fisac, you can remain calm. You can remain chill if we added you to the next segment, because I agree with you. I think they are properly rated, but again, to your point, if they fall to the Retrievers, overrated instantly. because then that division is all in the Retrievers' hands, in my opinion. So, properly rated so far. We'll see what happens come season episode 6 of Jacked. Which, moving on, Murph Kelly. This Murph Kelly, former MVP, former ball player, went to the Angels, was there for what, 4 games, and now he's with the Bombers. Is he overrated, underrated? What's like kind of the impact that we're probably gonna see when he heads to the Bombers?
A 417 player. This is underrated. He's a 417 season 4, which means he's gonna lose what, around like maybe like
It's
60, 70 points this offseason. Guess
35 to
what? That's still
65.
wait, what is it?
It's minus 35 or minus 6. Like the range is negative 35 to negative 65.
For because he's gonna be
that would be the 5th season, because season 4, 5, 6, 7,
5,
and
6,
8.
7, 8, 9. Yeah, so I get it'd be 5 seasons, and if it's only minus 35 to 65, then yeah, it's very much underrated because
Yep.
that's the Bombers just got a player that next season is still potentially going to, well, it won't potentially be over 400 even with progression, but will be like 380.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good player. The season after, he's gonna be 320. Guess the way in which aging goes. The fielding is the one that goes first. So Murph Kelly could very much, even after this season, he could have right now for the Bombers a shelf life of 3.5 years, 2.5 of them in the field, the last one as a position player.
Yeah.
I wish I could have made this trade now knowing what he was going for. Like,
no, I
knowing
agree. Underrated for sure. I think he's going to be a massive asset for the Bombers. But here's a question I'm going to ask you before we head on to the best segment of this entire podcast of Panic and Chill. Is Murph Kelly going to be a Bomber for more than one season?
I don't know, Whitney. Let me know what your plans are for him after this season.
That's just something to consider. You just mentioned he's going to be probably around a 380, more than likely. Is he someone that's going to get traded for, a pick or something? That's just something that came to my mind. If the Bombers do not win this season, is he an asset to then trade away?
I'm gonna go with he's gonna stay a Bomber, just because of how much Whitney has struggled to try and ship off like Beatrice Tanner, how hard it was for him to ship off O'Connell. It just, for some reason, people don't like to buy the veterans from the Bombers, or at least put up a price that Whitney is able to give off. So
Yeah.
I think he's perfectly comfortable to keep Murph Kelly on the bench if necessary as well. So
I mean, that bat coming off the bench for a pinch hit, that might be a massive moonshot, or to the moon, or that bat off the bench is going to be very crucial in the future seasons for the Bombers. That's I do agree. I think if the Bombers do well this season, like, and maybe even win it all, I think he'll stay. But I think if they either don't qualify, he might end up he might go elsewhere, because there was more interest after he got traded than when he was on the trade block. So that's just something to consider. Which we'll go ahead and move into Panic and Chill, which the first two, we have the Pulver House on the line here. Not literally on the line, on the phone, imagine. But we have the Pulver House, the Vikings and the Serpents. Vikings, we'll start with them. Are we in panic mode right now, or are we saying chill for the time being? And I say for the time being because I think there's a moment that there will be some panic, if not now.
I think they're chill. I also think, from the rumorings that I have heard as well, from where their organization may be in the next week in terms of their roster, I think they're very much chill, because I think they're performing. I think not only are they performing a little bit better than expected, even though they're 500, but also with the fact that the Lumberjacks are only a half game behind. And even if the Lumberjacks win their next game, only 1 game behind the Lumberjacks and very much in control. I think they're a lot better off than what I was expecting them to be. So I'm actually going to say chill for the Vikings.
I'm going to say chill. But obviously with the Lumberjacks being 2 of the next 3 games for the Vikings, then we'll probably be panicking, depending on the results there. But I agree. I am going to say chill. I am going to go ahead and move on to the Serpents and say I'm panicking if I'm the Serpents because it's starting to get really, really hot in the Phenoms. It's starting to get, the race is on. Teams are getting closer. The gap between the Serpents were like 2 games ahead of both the Bombers and the High Rollers at one point, and now it is literally what 1.5 games between them. I think it's time for the Serpents to panic a little bit. Big McLarchu, as you mentioned, is heading below 200. He is their best bat on that lineup. He should be performing better. Fisek, what are your thoughts? Are you panicking along with me here for the Serpents?
Panicking for the Serpents because again, I think that I don't know, man. You just gave that idea of a 3-game play-in where one team doesn't make it, one team is a 6 seed, and one team wins the division. And I cannot get that out of my head because guess what? In that scenario, it would be the very next week in the wild card round if the Phenoms team is the worst rated Epic conference winner, Epic division winner, it would just be a rematch of that title game for the wild card because it'd be the 3 versus the 6 as well. So I can't get that out of my head now. And that's scary if you're a Serpents fan, given how much the team has not been performing right now.
Yeah, that's and again, you still have to play the Bombers twice. You have to play the Wildcats this week. You have to play the Ball Players as your final game of the season. That's where I think I'm still panicking because you've played the Angels, you beat them 13-2. You lost to the Unicorns 9-1. You beat the Sparrows 11-1. You beat the High Rollers by 1. You beat the Overdrafts by just 2, which it was 6-1 and they scored 3 in the bottom of the 9th. The Overdrafts did, but still, it was only a 2-run game against the Overdrafts. You were up against the Stingers and you just choked it. You choked and gave up eight runs towards the end of the game to lose that one. So I'm panicking if I am a Serpents fan or if I'm Dean. He probably disagrees. He's probably staying chill where he's at, but I'm panicking for sure. This one's an interesting one, and there's a little bit of explanation. Obviously, Wildcats are probably the second best team in the entire Epic, I would say, overall. Even though they are at 2 losses, I do think they're better than the Ball Players. That's just my personal take on that. But they lose Jackson Moore the 4th for 4 weeks. That's
4. Jackson Moore 4 forward. 4.
So many 4s. That I believe I want to say that was mentioned on the broadcast as well. It's 5 games that he's going to be missing, which if we're looking at the next 5 games for the Wildcats, High Rollers, Serpents, Angels, Wrongfielders, Mythic, those last 3 probably not going to be missed too much in those games, but the High Rollers and Serpents games, that's probably where he's going to be missed the most. However, though, I'm going to be chill if I'm the Wildcats. I think they have such depth over there. I'm not going to panic just yet, even though Jackson Moore is such a crucial piece to that lineup.
Man, what a spin from last week. Because I'm agreeing with you. I'm chill. I'm chill with this. I think that he's a DH. You can't swing a bat around the SSBL without finding a decent enough DH. Now, is he a good DH? He's a very good DH. I don't think that wins or loses you games against the High Rollers and the Serpents.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're chill here. Wildcats should, and those will be good games. And we'll actually move on to week 6 as another panic and chill. This is just panic and chill in general because of how many games are so crucial in this upcoming week. We have the Wildcats at the High Rollers. That's going to be, which we're just talking about, Wildcats without Jackson Moore. They head to Red Rock Park to face the High Rollers, the reigning champions. I think that's going to be an absolute crazy matchup. Then we have Gachos at Dragons. That is probably, out of all of these, one of my most, I am looking forward to this matchup. I think
up my team because you're giving me expectations, and every time I've had expectations
I think
for my
the Gauchos
team,
are going to win.
break.
I think the Gauchos are going to win, but I am looking forward to that matchup because of the what could happen in like with the result of that game. Move on to the next one. High Rollers at Bombers. We saw a walk-off home run. The High Rollers beating the Bombers 4-3. Can the Bombers battle back and get that crucial win in that Phenoms conference? Then we have overdrafts at the Retrievers. That is literally going to define the remainder of the season, really, for that division. And then we end it with Wildcats at Serpents, which again, that we just talked about with the panicking for the Serpents. They play the Wildcats. It's going to be a major test for both teams, obviously missing Jackson Moore, as we mentioned. But for the Serpents, this is like their true test. Unicorns, they got absolutely blown out by the Unicorns. Unicorns have had the Wildcats number, but they've been relatively close games. Will the Wildcats have the Serpents number? I am panicking this week, man. This is an insane week of games. So many crucial games. I'm panicking. A panic meter at an all-time high.
I'm chilling. I'm absolutely chilling because I've got my knees knocking each other for the first game with the Gauchos at Dragons on day one, but I'm just chilling for the rest and gonna enjoy some good SSBL baseball. That's my game plan. I don't know why you're getting
I'm
in a big
panicking.
time rush, bro. Just enjoy it.
Look, man, there are so many, it's starting to get very, very close, and these games mean so, like, each game is starting to mean so much more week after week. And this week has so many games, specifically in the Epic, that are going to define almost like an entire division, because they all, if you look at those games that I listed, you have Wildcats twice, you have High Rollers twice, then you have the Bombers and Serpents. That's why I'm panicking, because there's so many games that are so crucial for that Phenoms division in particular, which I just put into your head this crazy play-in.
Yes, stop it. I'm not a fan of it. I gotta sleep at night.
And then a best of 3 for playing the same game.
We need a new emoji, spoopy Josh.
So that's
Spoopy Josh will haunt your lotto odds.
So we head into next week, obviously the week ahead. Our game of the night, presented by Turtle Beach. Day 1, we have the Gauchos at the Dragons. You have Gauchos winning 5-2. My prediction of this game, I'm gonna say it's a bit closer. I'm gonna go 3-1. I'm gonna say 3-1. I think the pitching staff for both teams it's gonna be a pitching duel.
It's the ones for both teams.
It's gonna be
Ting and whoever the Gauchos have as their one.
Yeah, pitching duel. But I think the Gauchos bats will wake up. I think it might be even closer than that. It could be very similar to a Unicorns game, just because it's the ones facing each other. I do think it could be a pitcher's duel for quite a bit of innings in that game.
And I don't think this game changes much in the heroic. But if the Dragons win, if Dragons find some way to win, all of a sudden this gets very interesting, because the Dragons through 9 will be 6-3, whereas the Gauchos through 5 would be 3-2. I don't think that's gonna happen, so I don't think this game has much implications. But if the Dragons somehow upset the Gauchos, very, very different narrative all of a sudden.
That's why I was panicking in the last segment. The day 2 SSBL game of the night, presented by Turtle Beach, is overdrafts at Retrievers. You have Retrievers winning 7-5.
Yeah, I think the Retrievers wake up, even though it's against the overdrafts 1. I think we find out that the overdrafts are overrated, and I think what it is that overdrafts bullpen is not as solid as we think it is. And if you remember back to week 2, day 1, overdrafts won 5-4 over the Walkers.
Right.
The Walkers. Granted, the Walkers beat the Retrievers 5-3, but I think the Retrievers wake up. I think this is they finally put themselves in a position to be successful, and they finally take control of the icons, their destiny. Although they were probably expecting to do that over the moonshots than they were the overdrafts.
No, absolutely. But looking at who the number one is for the overdrafts, we have Dice K. So far, looks like 10 and 2/3 innings pitched, 8 hits given up, 4 earned runs, walked 3, struck out 15, and gave up 1 home run. I'm gonna go overdrafts. I think it's gonna be close though. I'm gonna go with actually I think there's gonna be a good amount of runs. I'm gonna go 8-5 in favor of the overdrafts. I think they know how to put up the runs. They have the bats to do so. I'm gonna go 8-5 overdrafts there. Which leads us to our final matchup, and oh my, you are something else. Wildcats at Serpents. FISAC has the Serpents winning this game 9-8.
I think that it is the week for emergence. I think maybe some of the SSBL teams may have been observing Lent a little bit too early, or where they're just like, the tomb, we're still in the tomb, we haven't awoken yet, but they're done. They're not making it the 40 days. They're coming it out. Big McLarge finally plays like the player that he is. It's just going to be a fiesta. And I think the Serpents get a game that has huge implications for the Phenoms.
In which, if we look at, we're going to be at, look, it's game 7. So number 3 for the Serpents. And then we have game 7 as well. So number 3 is for both squads. Fanny Minshew for the Wildcats, and then
wow, Wildcats play. Well, no, it'll be the Wildcats 2.
Wildcats 2?
Yeah.
Number 7?
Because they're 6-2 right now.
Oh.
So their number 1 will
start. I can't freaking count. So it's a number 1, so it's anti-jar, right? If you're saying
no, it'll be their number 2. So it'll be Polo Cologne
versus
it's okay, old man.
Cheese.
I'll take you through this. It's Polo Cologne versus
versus Hard Cheese.
Versus
Hard Cheese.
That's a matchup we've seen before.
I do think that the Wildcats will win. And I do think that playing at Big Sky has an effect on this game, because I think those high walls are going to stop a lot of those that high wall is going to stop a lot of those home runs from happening. I'm going to say Wildcats win, and I'm going to say we're going to have ourselves a barn burner. Just like how you have it. You have 9-8 Serpents. I'm going to go with 8-7, Bob. 8-7.
You give me so much crap, and yet you only have the Wildcats winning by 1. See, this is what This is what happened. Last week, you have an absurd notion that the Mythic are the best team, the best expansion team in the SSBL. I come over here and I just I think the Retrievers are gonna do something. I think the Serpents, and all of a sudden, I'm the crazy one. I'm the crazy one when you only have the Wildcats winning by 1. No, good sir. I will not have you slur my good name.
I'm just saying that the Wildcats will win. They will win. Yeah,
but the reaction that you had, like, the Serpent's going to win. You know what the difference is between my result and your result? A margin of 2 runs, Bob.
$1, Bob. $1. Wildcat Serpents is probably going to be, to be honest, it's probably going to be not what you and I have here. if we're being honest.
Really? You think that our uneducated guesses aren't going to result in anything?
Yeah, they're going to. Yes. I'm not going for a PhD. I didn't even get my bachelor's.
What do you think I study?
You study
that would give me the ability to know what happens. What do you think I do?
Collegiate esports and studying of that world, which we can talk about at a different time.
We have fallen full off the rails now.
Full off the rails. Which obviously we just talked about the games of the night presented by Turtle Beach. Which, remember, if you guys are new, you could win a headset from
wow, look at this
Turtle Beach.
How many do you have? You got so many. They keep on appearing.
One more.
Don't drop them. Then you have to call the rep again.
You can win.
Someone needs to take a screenshot of this right
You
now.
can win. And the best thing is those aren't the ones that are given away because Turtle Beach ships them out directly to consumer.
How do you have? Okay, I don't want to know the answer
Birthday
to that
care
question.
package, my guy. Birthday care package.
So who won this week?
So this week, the winner of the Scout Airs is Kawashi_blue. Thanks for tuning in and becoming a new member of the SSBL squad. You have embraced the SSBL with open arms and have
The sign of fate. The first week that he enters in,
right.
he
He's
like,
he
like, I
wins.
mean, we're assuming he, but the fact, I mean, that's fate right there.
Yep. He was meant to be here. He needed his Scout Airs to watch baseball and a basketball commercial at the same time. You know, it's a blast here in the SSBL. I did see someone comment about that in the chat a few weeks. I think it was the second week of the giveaways. They're like, "What? We're watching a basketball and a baseball game." Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of Jacked. Hopefully the audio was good. We'll see.
Listen, that's all you.
That is
That's all
all me.
you. We
That
know
is
it's not
all me.
me.
But I'm looking at the levels. It sounds like, I mean, just looking at it, it looks like it should be good. We'll see. But thanks as always for tuning in. Make sure you do subscribe here on YouTube. Minors go up on Sunday. This goes up on Saturdays every week. Minors on Sundays, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday you have live majors action on twitch.tv/official SSBL. My name is Jay Watt alongside Fisac. We'll see you next week.
Keep on rigging, everybody.